30 years ago, this was a forgotten corner of Brisbane. Then 3 decades of tenacity, imagination and community drive changed that forever.
For all of the things that I've experienced in Greater Springfield, we are and against the odd success. There's no question about that. No one would ever have predicted the outcome that we've achieved.
I can't imagine what went through their minds looking at this area in the early days and thinking that a community as it is today could be built.
Because if you think about the traditions of cities, they have a focal point. They might be a port, they might be a riverside centre, they might be a stagecoach stopping point. Here we didn't have that. This is really just a big grassy paddock.
There was a lot of scepticism. People who didn't feel the dream that Maha had and Bob Sharpless had. The Springfield Land Corporation at the time was actually in a small little building across the road from my office. So yeah, there was not much here at all.
I actually remember it very well because I was working at the Courier Mail. I spent some time with Maha and I wrote the story, I put it in, and I looked in the paper the next day, no story. So I went to the news editor and I said, why didn't that story run? He said, you wrote a story that said some guy that nobody has ever heard of is going to build a whole new city in clapped out scrub country in the back blocks of Goodna. If we run that, people will think we've lost the plot.
It's amazing actually to see and be part of it from that ground level in the early days. And they had been going around at that stage 10 years.
Maha Sinnathamby has had an extraordinary vision for this community, and it's difficult not to be caught up and inspired by that. He is also, in the best sense of the word, a relentless advocate.
So we saw this land calling out to us, bring me out as a city.
This region, without any question, has got tremendous potential.
Springfield will become a major regional center.
It's got to happen with this much of massive population moving here.
But it cannot happen without the will and support of all of you.
It's not us, it's everybody who is involved in Springfield. And we are working with them hard too. We are working very hard with government.
You got to admire him, he knows what he wants and mostly he gets it.
I was invited out here for the initial sod turning ceremony. When it finished and I got in the car and I drove out of the place, I said to myself, my God, who in their right mind would pay $87,000 for a block of land in this place? Are they nuts? Well, you wouldn't believe it. Within 4 to 5 years' time, I ended up paying $250,000 and happy to do so, to live in this wonderful community.
This was a huge city that he had this dream of creating. Why wouldn't you want to be part of that?
And that's kind of the Maha Sinnathamby mantra. So as soon as you get people to believe that something is possible, the pace just speeds up tremendously. Whereas Bob brings that, if you really want to change the world, you've got to figure out how to make it commercial and profitable. And the minute it's commercial and profitable, you've changed everything. I'd hate to see them married.
I mean, we don't always agree on everything. And I think that's because we come from such different backgrounds.
I had a debt of something like about $32 million.
I didn't know that though.
All the empire of mine had crashed.
And I always thought that he would rise again, you know, like he just needed some good people around him, which was me. Yeah, well, I certainly have the view that the people that invested here in the early days probably took a bigger risk than we did. You know, for them it was their family home, it's where they chose to bring up their family. They came here under a huge amount of faith. Our advertisements used to advertise what was coming in the future, but it wasn't here now.
So there was always that hesitation from all people, but once they felt it and came here, they want to be part of it.
The vision started to become a reality and people were saying, hang on, they're actually doing this.
If you can't find a tradesman in the southeast, this is probably the reason. In Springfield, they're everywhere, and it's not just houses.
It'll be bigger than the Brisbane and Ipswich CBDs combined.
That'll make this place the largest master-planned community in the Southern Hemisphere.
Incorporating entertainment, big retail stores, plus another 2 lakes.
Springfield, southwest of Brisbane, is the first computerised community in the world.
Every home will come with a multimedia computer.
It's going to be a city in its own right.
We want to bring them all in here.
I came here in 1994. Springfield had opened. I've done 10 full marathons, I've done 5 ultras. No, hang on, I've done 10 ultras because 5 of them were running and the other 5 were walking. I don't sleep, so I think, well, I'm awake, be productive. Most of the times around midnight, I get up about 11:30 and get dressed and out of the house by 12 o'clock. And I get home about 10 to 6 in the morning. As I'm walking, there was rubbish on the ground. So I thought, well, I'll start picking up the rubbish as well. Well, over the 28 years, I have found heaps of bikes, filing cabinets, ladders, shovels, kitchenware. Haven't found the kitchen sink yet, but that's on my list. I was 70 last week, so I'm still trotting and I've got a lot of years to go as well. Not about to break my routine. Not for no pill cream, nobody. People say to me, but it's raining. I said, well, it wasn't raining when I went out. That's my haul this morning. And the battery. People put in an order. I find a lot of things and people say, while you're out there walking, this is what I need. And blow me dead, half the time I come back within a week with the order that they want.
So there's a real sense of community. That's an attraction to it. The golf course was originally built in the early 2000s, designed by Greg Norman, and it adds to the aspect of living here too, with the greenery and the wildlife. And I think that adds a lot of value to your life. It's quite a challenging golf course. We don't like Greg Norman very much because he's made it so hard for us poor golfers.
There are going to be some tough holes out there. I'm not going to be Mr. Nice Guy to everybody, I can tell you that.
You can play this course 100 times and still be intrigued by all the nuances of the way it's been designed. That's Greg Norman all over. Complex gentleman.
It's said that if you build it, they will come. And they sure did. First by road, then by train, some even by helicopter. There was a desire to be part of something different, something new.
I can remember my first day trying to find the place. It wasn't on Google then. There was temporary fencing up all over the place and you were escorted from your car, put a hard hat on and escorted into the building. There wasn't much else here. Even for lunches, there wasn't anywhere to eat. There was a great feeling, though, that everybody was working together to build something. So there's a series of staff photographs for about the first 6 or 7 years where you can see there's a handful of people in the first photograph and the staff numbers are building up.
It is a very different experience to go out to the green space and not have that structure where everything is still being developed as well. The only Springfield I knew of was the one in The Simpsons. The first school was called Woodcrest College, where I am to this day. There is a photo for Ash Barty in the foyer of the office area, and I'm pretty sure that first class I had, she was in that class, and I would do the roll, and every time I called the roll, everyone would say, "She's not here, sir. She's playing tennis." With the development of a city, art is very integrated in the culture of the people and can come over time where people find themselves and then perhaps grow the ideas of expressing art. There are many groups that have migrated to Springfield area that have brought dance and song with them. It is something that needs to be expressed. The art can be fostered by the children at the schools, especially through the teaching staff, but also through their parents and through their own communities that they're involved with. They can definitely bring that through and it can grow on a whole.
The reason I'm here is because of my mum. She'd just seen Himba somewhere, but she read all about that it's an Indigenous school and the culture is woven through every sort of aspect. I didn't really know much about my culture, but coming here, oh, this is so much better. We all, have that slang and that terminology that we all use, and we share the same morals. I've never ever heard of a school or seen or been at a school that was so dedicated to us and they care about us. That really opened my eyes up, and I was like, this is such a beautiful school. For me, it's a part of who I am.
I've always said education is a currency of the future, and it's the only currency that cannot be stolen from an owner. What else do you want? Everything else they can take it out of me, but they can't take the education that's in you.
Students at USQ come from all sorts of backgrounds. One of the things that we have noticed over the time here is there's been quite a number of Indigenous students that have come through USQ. I think physically being located in the community makes it more likely that they'll apply, because it's less intimidating here.
Growing up in this part of southeast Queensland, no one ever expected to go to university, let alone graduate from one. So as developers or community builders, it's a very powerful piece of feedback to actually be told that we've totally changed the trajectory of young people in this corridor, and that's incredibly satisfying.
Schools was always a strong theme. You add hospitals to that, and that gives people comfort around where they live. You don't have to have that problem that we used to have in Brisbane where you felt like you had to battle traffic to get to a hospital if you got sick.
Hospitals and healthcare more particularly have always been enormously important. Our service at Springfield, we currently have 280 employees. About 60 to 65% of those are local community members. The service itself will expand now with our stage 2 to have more than 1,000 employees. It's all part of a grand vision that started 30 years ago to develop a health city here with up to 1,200 beds and being a major world-class centre.
The vision was undeniably bold, and the road to today wasn't always so smooth. At first, people ignored it. They laughed, and then they fought it. But in the end, persistence won, and a unique community began to emerge.
So one of the reasons that I saw Springfield being really, really interesting is when Ergon was planning the power network for Springfield, I saw that there was a hospital that was going to be built, a university that was going to be built, a large shopping centre that was going to be built, a data centre, a golf course, and then all these residential houses. Being able to work together and actually design that future, that is just an amazing opportunity. I actually thought when I left Ergon Energy that I was going to have to take my wife and we were going to have to move overseas. And the crazy thing is, the best place to do this in the world was 15 minutes from where I live. It's quite possible that in 10 years' time, Springfield is generating more energy than it's consuming and actually pumping energy back into the network as if it was a big generator. Now, being able to do that, what an amazing opportunity.
One of the things that I get excited about with Springfield is that this community has been very forward-thinking in creating a 2038 net zero emissions target. And that's a little bit new for Australia, and I'm very proud to live in a community that's done that. I was about 14 when I decided that I was going to be a veterinary surgeon. I was that student at university that always had a little possum down my jumper, a little wallaby. In fact, I lived here well before Springfield was probably conceived. And I loved the clients in the area and their pets. In 2006, I moved the practice to Springfield. It grew very quickly. Pets have an extraordinary role in our community. Our Groodles program does a lot of work in providing puppies for people with special needs. It enriches lives. Some of our puppies go into hospitals on hospital visits and school visits. All of the proceeds from our puppies after our expenses have been paid are donated to charity, and we've donated over $540,000.
People often talk about Springfield's master plan, but in reality, plans only get you so far. It was the DNA of the people who moved here that made this place bigger than its owner's vision. it became a community worth celebrating.
These are genuine individuals who are committed to creating a society that is based on enhancing human and social capital.
The biggest thing I find with the Springfield community, it's incredible diversity. We certainly see a lot more cohesion, a lot more celebration of each other's differences here. When I say diverse, it's not only just our ethnicity, but also our age groups, retirees, through to young ones attending their first school. There are so many layers, we positively celebrate that. But we see all those people coming together at common venues, so for example, like Rebel Domain for one of the largest dawn services that's held every year for Anzac Day. We see people from as young as toddlers through to retired soldiers. It's certainly something to behold.
Our Anzac Day dawn service here is electric. Not many dry eyes. You can't describe it. You've got to come here and you've got to feel it. So how it came about was my granddad. He was my hero. He was a unique man. The war got him. He said, right, kid, this is it. And I said to him then, I will make my vow to you to honour you for the rest of my life. And that's where it became my passion. And so we started out, really when you go back to it, 150 people to, nearly 9,000 attendees back in 2019. He'd just have his arm around me and say, I'm so proud of you, kid, because that's what he used to do.
From my perspective, the community's grown because we are still the same people involved in the project that started it. If you're going to bring all these people here, you had to make sure they were very well-meaning and well-intentioned. Something clicked.
Because, my friend, it was the army behind us that made this happen. There was an army, somehow this army was united.
When you look at great cities, they have great sporting infrastructure. And sport is such a big part of Australian culture. So it has to be a big part of Greater Springfield.
I came here 10 years ago, my son was 1 year old. I felt the sense of community straight away, to be honest with you. And there was something different about it, that genuinely there was. The club was struggling back then. It was slightly frustrating because you were watching other codes around you flourish, and then you sort of come out to us at the time where you're playing the back of a school with a pop-up tent and a little barbecue. You could see it unfolding, and I was never the type of guy, nor was I taught just to stand by and let things fall down. My wife and I, plus a handful of others, we just put our hand in our pocket, went and got some sausages and did some local sausage sizzle at IGAs and just raised funds like that. That's who we were, and we were proud of who we were at the time. That's what we had. 2015, we decided to enter the women's competition. Played our first match, we lost 131-0. Girls loved it. 90% of them never played football in their life. So we pushed on and we won the next game, and then we won the next game and the next game. And we actually won the club's first ever premiership, and male or female, like the first premiership ever.
So my nickname is Weapon. I was with Greater Springfield Storm. People saw potential in me.
We had some grown men and ex-footballers on our team, and she was jumping past them and out-marking them, and we sort of knew, well, I think we've got to get this young lady in the AFL.
The amount of support that I've had from Springfield, it's unreal. They've encouraged me to go further with it. And I'm a part of the training squad with the AFLW Brisbane Lions. I don't know how many times he's mentioned, but I think he's pretty proud of me.
Now, ultimately, we've got a stadium that's being built, is now an Olympic venue, and it's going to be the home of the Brisbane Lions.
I'd love to play over here one day. That first bounce or the first touch on that field, it'd be solid. It would be amazing, really.
It's all about the memories and the friendships and the connections. They are buzzword type things, but, without the football club, I'm not sure how my life would have turned out. I've actually got to get generally emotional now, when you have to persevere through that for so many years and then to get somewhere, you truly understand what it means to actually build something from scratch.
It was totally master planned to the last detail. And can I say this, for the last 30 years, we have never changed our master plan. We have just kept the picture as it is.
Maha didn't ever play in the minor league. From day one, the audacity of the way this area was put on the political agenda and the public agenda was something to behold.
You will never find a community that will embrace you how this community embraces each other. Our business community, our civilian community, our defence community, it's something you cannot, it still gives me goosebumps to feel it.
Springfield's got a lot of character over the years, and every area as Springfield's grown, the estates changed, the houses changed.
The youth of a community like this also brings fresh energy because you're building a community based on what the emerging group of young families, young professionals want from lives, and they have a big say in what happens because their demand for services drives the services that get created here.
I mean, you must appreciate that, we're not going anywhere. This is not a project where we're going to come here, develop 500 lots and bugger off.
Bob and Maha did what they said they were going to do. I don't think there's too many naysayers left.
It's about being bold, being courageous, and what can happen when we share an enduring vision.
Any of you who haven't been to one of our home buyers' nights, come along to the next one. We've had up to 1,000 people.
In 10 years of being Prime Minister, I've never been associated with anything quite like this.
It's the first time in the world that a community development has gone so far.
Convincing long lines of doubters and naysayers that the vision was right.
That is the achievement of Springfield City, a snapshot of the art of the possible.
This would have been just like all the other places around here. But because of your own fingerprints and your aspiration to lift the standards and do things so much better, you've totally changed the trajectory of this part of South East Queensland.